Hi guys. My name is Rosario Rodriguez. I want to talk to you guys today about technology in the classroom. So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to go over some tools that you can use with your kiddos. I have been a teacher for 5 years. I am a teacher for students with moderate and severe disabilities. So a lot of the tools that I'm using have helped me over the past year while we were doing Zoom classes. And as we've transitioned back into the classroom, these are tools we've been able to continue to use. Because this is a special ed class, please don't feel like the tools would not apply to you. A lot of the tools that we're using today are designed with UDL in mind. So when we look at Universal Design for Learning, we look at how that helps all students. So that's what we're going to do today. So if you follow me, I am going to share my screen just to show you. Let me pull that up for you guys. I'm going to give me 1 second. I'm going to present this. So bear with me, give me a second. Then I'm going to pull myself up just so that you can see me. So again, we're going to look at technology in the classroom and how we can use that to help our students. So if we look at, let me pull this down for you guys. If we look at why we use technology in the classroom, a lot of the research shows us that technology in the classroom not only provides us additional access to videos and audio, so things like, we're reading a story, for example, about the Great Depression, and you can pull up a video. So we don't use it just for that. We also use it to, it allows us to increase the options we have to accommodate and modify instruction. So again, I'm speaking from a special education standpoint, but of course, these accommodations and modifications also look at students that are in, for example, remedial classes, maybe students that are failing. So when we look at response to intervention, these are tools that, again, we can use for that. Research also shows that technology in the classroom leads to higher student engagement and participation. And of course, we would hope that these three things combined would lead to increased student achievement. So for today, as my example, I am going to use, again, one of the lessons that I use with my kiddos. So I do teach high school students in the moderate severe program. So my kids range from 9th through 12th grade. And this was a lesson we did back in February, and it was an introductory lesson before we covered Black History Month over the course of February. So of course, my lesson plan included, I began with a video. So again, using those extra tools to present information. A lot of my kids don't read. Are not able to read. So I introduced the topic with this video. After the video, we moved on to a circle map that usually we're drawing ideas. Well, what did we take away from this lesson? What did you hear? What did you see? And we were writing, and then for some of my kids, I had pre-cut pictures. And so they were pasting the pictures as I said the word. So for example, it talked about struggle. And so for some, they would write the word struggle, and I had pictures again for some of my other kids. We read a story on, of course, after this video and our circle map, we read a story on Black History Month. We read that together. We followed that story up again with vocabulary. We bring some of those new words. Some of my kids a trace, some of my kids match, and then some of my kids define vocabulary using, for example, Google search. And then we ended up that lesson, we wrapped it up with comprehension questions, and that was, of course, our ticket. For some of my kiddos, my comprehension questions were just written. And for some of my kiddos, they used one of the tools that we're going to be looking at, Edpuzzle, to complete those questions. So of course, the main tool that we cannot forget, the tool that we are using today, is Zoom. So I had never heard of Zoom prior to distance learning. It was not something that we used. It was not something that I had ever considered using in my classroom. As we've transitioned back into the classroom, and I am still doing Zoom with some of my kids that are have decided to continue doing distance learning, this has been an amazing tool to use at home. Not only am I doing live lessons, but I can do video recordings like today. So I can record my lesson, and then I will post it up in my Google Classroom. And then if, For example, the kiddo couldn't participate in my live session. They pull it up, they look at the video, and then they're able to complete the project or the activity that I've sent home for them to do it. So Zoom has been amazing. So this is an example of one of my classes. If you look here, like with, of course, with permission from my parents, was my kiddos doing a Thanksgiving project. So I sent home all of the materials and we were doing it live together. And so that was, Zoom has been great for our kiddos, especially if we look at students who are visual learners. This is me doing all of these steps. So they can see what I'm doing. I can use additional tools on Zoom. So I can use, for example, like a document camera so that they can see physically what I'm doing. I can share screen like I am doing right now with my presentation. So a lot of these things that for our kiddos are really important. Of course, we cannot forget our central hub. So think like our Google Classroom and Drive. So for a lot of people during this pandemic, and of course, even prior, people were using Google Classroom. So exactly like general ed kiddos, my kids were also using Google Classroom. This is where I would post daily reminders. This is where I would say, for example, if you look at this picture right here, I had classwork, I had people, I had grades. So I had different tabs for the parents to navigate. Where can they find an assignment that I posted, a picture that I posted? You know, they could write on the discussion board and we could have a conversation back and forth. And then, of course, I used Google Drive primarily for myself. I know that in the general education setting, a lot of students use Drive to save their work. And that's the same function that I used it, just my kiddos are not quite there yet, but I used that as a central hub to save all of the work. So I knew what I was doing every time that I was logging into Zoom. I'd be able to open up my Drive, click on the month, click on the week, and I had all my work ready for that day. So a really great place to store all that work. And again, open it wherever, from wherever and any device. So super useful, super convenient for these kiddos, especially if we think about Zoom. A lot of our kiddos were Zooming from their car, or they were Zooming while at the doctor's, or while at their parents' house while they were working. So a lot of different situations in Google Drive and Classroom allow you to open up that same interface from anywhere. So really convenient for our kiddos. I also, one of those other tools that I used was Edpuzzle. Some of the research also shows that gaming tools were really helpful during this time. Formative assessments are never fun, especially on Zoom. I couldn't have imagined doing a lesson where I'm trying to give a test over the computer. So these sort of informal assessments through games were really helpful. So one of those was Edpuzzle. So if we think back to that lesson that I spoke about at the beginning, I said some of my kiddos had to do comprehension questions. And so for some of them, it was paper and we were just circling, we were looking at the pictures. For my higher groups, they were doing Edpuzzle, and this was something that we would do together. So I would find a video. This was the same video that we watched at the beginning. And so the video that we watched at the beginning with no questions would repeat itself at the end of my lesson, only this time with questions. You can embed open-ended questions, you can embed multiple choice questions, and then you can do voiceovers on pre-existing media that was already in that Edpuzzle library. You could, of course, create new material. So this was a great tool for my kiddos to use, for me as the teacher. And then you can create a student portal, and students can create their own videos, do their own voiceovers, add their own questions to show that they've done comprehension. So a really great tool to use. And then, of course, the last tool that I used was Kami. I loved Kami. Again, had never heard of Kami prior to the pandemic. This was the tool that I used before I had a document camera while I was using on Zoom. So especially for kids that are visuals, that need step-by-step instructions, that need to see what you're doing and when you're doing it and how you're doing it, this was the tool for me. So Kami allows you to annotate and edit documents. It allows you to draw. It has drawing tools, so you could do colors, shapes, you could highlight, you can add text boxes, you can do also audio over here, and you can also do video annotations right over an existing PDF that you have uploaded onto their interface. If you share the document, which is one of its features, you can do what they call real-time participation. So multiple people adding to the same document over and over. So this was also really helpful. So if you look at something like this, where we're circling live or we're looking at the pictures live, and I, for example, would say, hey, point to the picture of the calendar. What does that say? Oh, it says February. Can you point? I'm pointing and they're pointing to the hard copy that they have in front of them, or they're circling because I have shared that document with them. So these were some of the tools that I used that I thought made Zoom classes engaging and as fun as they could be for kids who really just wanted to be in the classroom. I hope that was useful for you, and let me know if I can help you with anything. Thanks.